Good morning to Mr. Chairman. It is of the Senate Public Health and Welfare Committee, Hob Bryan. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Bobby.
Stop it. Now, don't get me started off in the wrong way here. So,
Is this Bobby Harrison?
No, and it's not Bill Minor either. So
I thought this was Bobby Harrison's podcast.
why would you? Are you? Did he pay you to do that, or
No.
are you with him at this moment?
I'm alone in my office in Amory with a telephone.
There you go. All right.
So that I can speak to you, and it's good to talk.
Good to talk to you. Always like having you in the studio, but we understand the situation. First of all, no agreement between the House and Senate, as you know of, at this moment on a Thursday morning about you guys returning.
That's correct. There's no agreement that I know of. But I should say, and just let me get this out of the way about everything in this conversation. We've got 174 legislators that are spread out all over the state. And so it's always different when we're spread out and when we're in session. And then you've got the coronavirus on top of that. So to say I don't know what's going on is probably an understatement. But it's always the case there could be things happening that I wouldn't know about, but particularly in this situation.
Well, I got on a personal basis, I got to be, you included, and just about everybody else, to seeing what happened the last time. Certainly with some of the members of the House and Senate, that everybody's got to be a little bit wary about returning unless it's absolutely positively necessary.
Well, I believe the legislature made a big mistake, as I believe the state made a big mistake in the change of behavior between May and June. When we reconvened at the 1st of May, we were very careful about getting in contact with each other. Mm-hmm. And when we came back in June, that was all just out the window, and I think that was a mistake. I think that's also a mistake in human behavior statewide, is that after the shutdown or near shutdown or whatever it was, that rather than being extremely careful and sort of putting our collective toe back in the water, everyone just heard the word open, and we are where we are.
Was it because of legal reasons, constitutional reasons, that the House filed this lawsuit, not the House and the Senate?
No, you're talking now about the.
Yeah, I want to switch to the lawsuit itself. Yeah,
the governor's attempted partial vetoes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there have been several similar lawsuits over the years, and what almost always happens is several members of the legislature file a lawsuit like this to test the constitutionality of the Governor's Act. So there are two individuals in the House who filed this lawsuit. They're different groups, usually a handful of people.
When you guys, when you left and adjourned, you passed a bill, a $130 million fund to help the healthcare providers and the hospitals and some other entities with food pantries and some of those as far as the ones doing the fighting on the front lines of the virus. And that money was part of $1.25 billion that Mississippi received in the federal funding aid. And that's some of the disagreement right now, exactly how that's being used. Reeves vetoed $2 million lawmakers directed to the shuttered North Oak Regional Medical Center in Senatobia. Now, the governor went on a Twitter storm last night or yesterday, and he said one of those projects was $2 million from the CARES Act Relief Fund for a business deal with a hospital that's been closed for years. Closed for years, he says. Nothing to do with COVID. I wonder who's involved behind the scenes. The other was for community organizing to fix disparity. They're also suing because I vetoed their budget when they passed a massive teacher pay cut, which their own ed chair now admits was a mistake because they got caught. They secretly eliminated rewards for good teachers and funneled into huge increases for administration's budget. Your response to that?
Well, I've read the governor's, is it a tweet storm? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, the tweet was whenever you have a multitude, that's called a tweet storm.
Well, I was disappointed. I thought the governor, it looks to me like something he said when he was upset and would have done better to think about it. He said some things in there that he knows is not right, and I was disappointed in that. He started calling people names and accusing Republicans of being liberals, which I guess is the cuss word of the day. I don't know, but I don't think that's productive, and I was disappointed in it. As far as the merits, they're really two different bills and two entirely different situations. Talking about the education bill, and I believe his veto of this bill was probably constitutional. There was a program for supplement bonuses for some teachers and employees in some school districts. Mm-hmm. It's my understanding the appropriations people assumed those bonuses were not going to be paid this year. The bonuses are actually paid, as it were, in arrears. So it developed that there were people that were entitled to bonuses this year, but there wasn't an appropriation for them. The governor found this. When he found this and made everyone aware of it, fairly quickly afterwards, and before he vetoed the bill, the legislative leadership had told him this was a mistake. We didn't mean to cut off people who had already earned bonuses. As soon as we get back in session, we will appropriate money for this. I'll point out that's not that different from what happened when the governor was lieutenant governor 1 year earlier, mm-hmm. and the legislature underfunded money for the teacher pay raise. And when that happened, the legislative leadership said, we realize we made a mistake, and as soon as we get back in session, we'll provide that money. And that's what happened in January. One of the first things we did.
Wait a minute. And that could be done legally, as far as it's almost like an IOU, wouldn't it be? But you're saying that could be done legally in the intervening time before you guys got back into session.
Well, I mean, what took place in both instances is there's a situation that was going to require legislation, mm-hmm. but the legislative leadership said we're going to pass this additional appropriation, and with the assurance that money was coming, the existing funds could be spent appropriately, and then there would be a subsequent appropriation to make up the difference.
And we're talking about also DMR.
No. This is solely education.
But I mean, the same thing wouldn't apply to DMR.
No, it would not.
Okay.
Because the education, had the governor not vetoed the bill for the entire education program, which did not get one red cent for the program he's talking about, all it did was take all the money away from every school district in the state.
All right, hold on, because I want to get back to this. Trey Lamar did issue a letter. He said, thank you, Governor Reeves, for the shout-out today on my 40th birthday. Let me offer you a gift in return, a little advice. Please be honest with Mississippians. They deserve it. Of course, I'm not a plaintiff in the lawsuit that you're so upset, but I know you don't have time for such small technicalities. Then he issued the truth about the $100 million of the CARES Act funds that you referred to distributed to every hospital in Mississippi. One of those hospitals is the hospital at North Oak. And we continue with the interview with Hob Bryan, who is the Senator Bryan District 7 chairman, also of the Senate Public Health and Welfare Committee. Just a couple of more lines on here from the response from Trey Lamar. Mr. Chairman, the truth is that more than $100 million in the CARES Act funds that you refer to distributed to every hospital in the state. The $2 million allocated to the Tate County Board of Supervisors is to be used by them for distribution to the new operator of the North Oak Hospital for COVID-19 related care, which they've pledged to begin providing this fall. If it doesn't reopen this fall, for whatever reason, the bill safeguarded the funds by requiring them to be redistributed to other hospitals in the state to provide COVID-19 related care. Is it liberal for the hospitals in Madison and Rankin counties to receive their share of the funds? I don't think so, and I don't think you do either. Why should the Tate County Hospital be any different? Because it is between ownership. I will tell you why. Apparently, by your own admission, I'm a leader of the opposition to you in the House. You publicly accuse me of playing political games while you are literally playing games when people's lives are at stake. So It's not good as far as where we are now, and I think, and I mentioned this earlier, Mr. Chairman, that I think most people, whether they're taking one side or the other, and I don't know in this particular case, all they see is the infighting with the Republicans. Your thoughts?
Well, if people are confused about which side to be on, I can help them, and I'll help you with this too. It's very simple. I'm right, they're wrong.
Is that it?
Well, that will serve you well. Look, yes.
Now,
right.
let me say this: if that was if this audience was mostly Democrat, that they probably would go for that. But it fell on deaf ears. Let me ask you this also:
I think it's unfortunate that partisanship is at the level it is in the country, and I think folks want us all to work together. But I'll point out this is primarily a spat between the governor and most on one side and most Republicans in the legislature on the other.
Okay, but why? Because you served for 8 years in the Senate with the Lieutenant Governor, Tate Reeves. Is it a personality situation? Is it power grab? Is it just setting the record straight? What do you think it is?
On a personal level, I got along well with the Lieutenant Governor during the 8 years that he was Lieutenant Governor.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have any personal complaint. I have policy differences, but I don't have any personal complaint. I certainly don't have any personal complaint with his being governor. But this was disappointing. To talk about he's attacking poor Trey Lamar as being a liberal just because he disagrees with him about this issue. And, you can say a lot of things about Trey, but this is a new one. He's the only person I know that's ever called Trey a liberal. So that's why I say I think the governor was just mad when he wrote this.
Well, I understand that, but being sued would give him a little bit of reason to be mad when you're sued by your own party, the House of the Speaker. That's another thing. And I've seen this so many times in my life on the air. One of the points in these political disputes when they turn legal, as a taxpayer, I don't care if I'm sitting in Ocean Springs or Olive Branch, I always ask a question: who the hell's paying for the lawyer? I think the Speaker's lawyer is Andy Taggart. Who's paying that fee?
There's a dispute about the constitutionality of the governor's vetoes. The way we resolve that in our system is we present it to the court and ask the court.
Well, that's not what I ask you. I ask you who's paying for the attorney, because we as taxpayers need to know.
Not important.
Why isn't that important? Is it coming from, if I'm paying for it, is important?
Because it's trivial compared to the important issue, which is what authority the governor has under the Constitution to exercise his partial veto.
Well, I got to hang on. Hold on, just I take a little bit of umbrage for you saying if I filed a lawsuit against someone and you had to pay the lawyer, I wouldn't consider that trivial.
Because there are tens of billions of dollars at stake every single year. The rules about what the governor can do in vetoing appropriation bills of tens of billions of dollars is important. It needs to be clear-cut, and to simply present this matter to the court for its decision seems to me an appropriate way to settle that. Now, when I filed a similar lawsuit, successfully I might add, when Governor Fordyce was governor, I paid for my own attorney, and the governor's attorney was paid for by the state, which is entirely appropriate. And
did you get a reimbursement?
No.
What also the governor said?
That's irrelevant. What was important was getting the decision about what the governor's veto authority.
All right, let me say the governor.
Back to what we were talking about here.
Let me put this in your first story. The governor said they don't have the votes to override the vetoes, so this is their Hail Mary. I wish they wouldn't pull us away from all the crisis we're managing to deal with their nonsense. But that's their favorite game. I'll keep trying to protect taxpayers and prevent the waste and damages. And I think whether you side with the governor or the legislative branch, we understand that this fight's being picked in one of the worst times we've had in modern history in this state with a pandemic.
which raises the issue of why did the governor pick the fight? With the appropriation bill, the matter that he was concerned about had been resolved before he vetoed the bill. He had been informed, whatever the previous history was, the legislature agreed with him, and as soon as they got in session, they would pass the appropriation bill. Despite that guarantee from the legislature, which the governor, again, when I think he was mad and speaking too hastily, said he couldn't trust those reassurances, which I think was a terrible thing for the governor to say, and I bet he wishes he hadn't said it. But nevertheless, at that point, he vetoed the appropriation bill that sends money to every single school district in the state. So he vetoed the appropriation for the school for the deaf and the blind. Why is he dragging the school for the deaf and the blind into this? The governor did not have to pass that veto, but he did, and when he did at 11 p.m. at night, that meant that not a single school district in the state of Mississippi could rely on getting money, knew how much money they were going to get, knew how much it was going to be calculated. He put additional real-world burdens on every school district in the state whose entire budget is built around this proposal. On top of that, he claims that he's got some authority to send money to the schools under a attorney general's opinion, and the schools did get some money, again, late in the month of August. But assuming for purposes of argument that's what the governor planned to do, he did not inform a single school district how much money they were getting, how the money was going to be calculated, how he was going to deal with the Chickasaw session money, which he also vetoed, until late in the month of July. Wire transfers showed up in their accounts. So I agree we shouldn't be having this fight at this particular time, and I ask again, why on earth would the governor at 11 p.m. at night veto this unnecessary, why would he enact, or why would he have an unnecessary veto that late at night to cause turmoil for every school district in the state, and they all got their hands full.
Let me ask you this: Has this hiccup in the process itself, has it delayed any of the money going anywhere that it's supposed to go to? Not so much the budget as far as the MDE and DFW or the
I think
Marine,
the schools got a check late in July in an amount that was approximately what they would have gotten under the bill. But they didn't know that until the money showed up. Nobody said, this is specifically how much money you're getting. They've got to prepare a budget for the whole year. They don't need to be worrying about what authority the governor has or doesn't have. So once again, if we could just get back in session, we can override this veto on the school money, and that will resolve the issue.
Right, and but let me ask you this.
We can pass the additional appropriation for this program he's concerned about.
Before we run out of time, let me ask you, do you have the votes to veto? Do you think there's the votes?
I assume they're there, but I don't know everybody's everywhere. Let me say this quickly about the hospital in Senatobia. This is what the situation is. I looked carefully at this when I saw what the House had passed. So it does merit some attention. But this is the situation. The hospital in Senatobia is closed. It desperately needs to reopen. They need a hospital in Senatobia, particularly right now during the COVID crisis. One of the reasons we've got money is to provide things like additional hospital beds, which potentially are available in Senatobia. If, in fact, this $2 million enables the hospital in Senatobia to reopen or assist in that, it's $2 million well spent.
And it is correct. We're running out of time
here.
Here.
The money if it complies.
I got you. If not, it rolls over to the other hospital.
Importantly, if they don't spend the money appropriately, if this deal isn't done by October the 1st, the money pours back to other hospitals.
By the way, let's also
a fail-safe mechanism. In
I got it. Let's also note the hospital's located in the District of Republican House Ways and Means Chairman Trey Lamar. So all
Trey
those
Lamar's
things.
constituents deserve hospital care just like everyone else.
I understand that. I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm just giving you the rest of the information. You're always a fount of wisdom, sir. Sometimes it overspills, and sometimes it's just there, but it's always good.
Bobby, it's been good talking to you.
Thank you, Jack. See you later.